Hi, you are on the Revenge Eddie channel.
My brother Danny was 3 years younger than me, but I swear he lived twice as much life in those years as I ever did in mine. He was bold, fearless, and reckless in a way that made people both love him and worry about him. He'd been the one to teach me how to throw a curveball when we were just kids. He was the one who showed me how to talk to girls without tripping over my words. When I was too nervous to even think about it, he was already sneaking out to meet people, to try new things, to push every boundary he could find. We grew up in Dayton, Ohio, on the kind of quiet street where kids played stickball in the summer and shoveled driveways in the winter for $10 a pop. I took the older brother role seriously. I followed the rules, clocked in on time at my job, paid my bills on time, never took big risks. Danny was the opposite. If there was a shortcut, he'd take it. If there was a dare, he'd accept it. If there was a line to cross, he was already on the other side by the time you thought about it. But beneath the jokes and bravado, he had a heart bigger than anyone I knew. He'd give his last dollar to a friend. He'd spend hours helping a neighbor move furniture even when he was dead tired from work. People loved him for that, even when they rolled their eyes at his antics. The night it happened, I was asleep in bed next to Maggie. It was 1:43 in the morning when my cell phone buzzed on the nightstand. I almost let it ring out, but something inside me told me to pick it up. "Mr. Lawson?" a steady but strained voice asked. "This is Officer Reynolds with the Dayton Police Department. Are you the brother of Daniel Lawson?" My stomach dropped through the floor. My throat went dry. I already knew the answer, but I still forced out, "Yes." "What happened?" He said the words I'll never forget. Danny had been in a single-car crash. He hadn't been wearing his seatbelt. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 28 years old. I don't even remember how I ended the call. My phone slipped from my hand onto the carpet. Maggie sat up, rubbing her eyes, asking what was wrong. I couldn't say it. My throat locked like it was glued shut. When I finally managed to whisper, "Danny's gone," she wrapped her arms around me, and I cried harder than I had since I was a kid. People tell you there are no words for that kind of loss. They're wrong. There are words. They just taste like blood in your mouth when you try to say them. The funeral was overflowing. Danny knew everyone. Bartenders, baseball coaches, coworkers, cousins, neighbors, girls he had dated, and girls he had left but who still showed up. People stood in the aisles, wiping their eyes, hugging each other, saying things like, "He lit up every room," and "He was the life of the party." I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to shout, "He's dead because he thought he was invincible. He's dead because he didn't buckle up." But I didn't. I shook hands, hugged strangers, and stood there like a hollowed-out version of myself. My parents aged 20 years overnight. My mom stared at the ground the entire service. Like if she looked up, she'd break in two. My dad kept clearing his throat, like maybe if he made enough noise, he wouldn't have to feel the silence pressing down on him. The coffin looked too small for Danny. His shoulders had always been broad, his presence always too big for the spaces he was in. Seeing him reduced to a wooden box made me want to tear the walls down. But I just stood there, numb. After the funeral, everyone else drifted back to their lives. They returned to jobs, to school, to paying bills, to worrying about things like grocery lists and gas prices. Couldn't. I was stuck. Driving became a nightmare. Every time I sat behind the wheel, I imagined Danny's last moments. The blinding headlights, the crunch of metal, the airbag failing to save him, the silence after. Nights were worse. I'd wake up at exactly 2 a.m., the time of the call. My heart would pound like a drum. I'd pour myself a drink to calm down. First, it was just a beer or two. Then it became whiskey, straight from the bottle. Maggie noticed. She begged me to talk to someone. I told her I just needed time. The truth was, I didn't think I deserved to heal. I was the older brother. I was supposed to protect him, and I hadn't. One evening, I drove out to the crash site. The guardrail was bent and scarred, spray-painted with Danny's initials. Someone had tied flowers to it, but they were wilted and brown. I sat in my truck with the engine off, staring at that broken guardrail for hours. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. At one point, a kid rode by on a bike and shouted, That's where the drunk guy died. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Danny hadn't even been drinking. His toxicology report was clean. He had just been exhausted, driving home after a late shift, and he didn't put on his seatbelt. That one mistake, that one tiny decision, erased his whole future. I wanted to chase that kid down and scream the truth. But I didn't. I just sat there and cried in the dark. The only thing that pulled me back from the edge was my son, Noah. One night he climbed onto my lap, looked at me with those big brown eyes, and asked, "Daddy, why don't you laugh anymore?" That broke me in a way the funeral hadn't. I realized Danny's death had already stolen so much. I couldn't let it steal me from my son too. The next week, I went to a grief support group. I didn't speak the first night. I just listened to parents who had lost children, wives who had lost husbands, and men like me who had lost brothers. One man said something I'll never forget. "We don't get over it. We carry it differently." That sentence planted a seed in me. I didn't feel better right away, but for the first time since the call, I felt like maybe I wasn't drowning completely. Over the next months, I learned to carry Danny's absence differently. I started running, at first just to exhaust myself into sleep, later because the rhythm of my feet on the pavement gave me something like peace. I set up a scholarship in Danny's name for kids in our hometown who wanted to play baseball but couldn't afford gear. It felt like something he would have done. Handing a kid a glove, telling him to swing hard, reminding him not to be afraid. I still dreamed about him. Sometimes he was alive, grinning, knocking on my door asking if I wanted to grab a beer. Sometimes he was standing at the crash site, silent. I'd wake up smiling. Then the grief would hit again. But I began to notice him in small ways. In Noah's baseball swing. In the music Danny used to blast from my old Chevy. In the reckless laugh that slipped out of me one day without warning. I started talking to him, too. At the crash site. On long drives. In the shower. I told him I was sorry. I told him I missed him. I told him Noah was growing too fast and would have loved having an uncle who taught him how to cheat at cards. Sometimes I imagined him answering back, "Quit blaming yourself. Quit hiding in whiskey. Live your damn life." Maybe it was just my own voice in disguise, but it helped. The real turning point came last fall at one of Noah's little league games. He swung hard, connected, and sent the ball flying past second base. He looked over at me, waiting for my reaction. For the first time in months, I stood up and cheered so loudly my throat burned. "I'm proud of you," I shouted. And I meant it. Maggie touched my arm and whispered, "There you are." And she was right. For so long, I'd been a ghost in my own life. That night, I felt alive again. I'll never stop missing Danny. I'll never stop wishing I could have done more. Told him one more time to buckle up, dragged him home when he was too tired to drive. But guilt is no longer the only thing I carry. Now I carry his laugh, his stubbornness, his generosity, his love for baseball. And when I carry those, I don't feel weighed down. I feel lifted. He's gone. But in so many ways, he's still here.